Hello and welcome to BWTV. Today, in this episode, we have a very special guest with us today. We have Ms. Nandita Lakshmanan, who is CEO of the practice. Welcome, Nandita.
Hi, Resham. Thank you for having me.
Uh, Good to have you. Good to have you. Today, when we know that media landscape is changing with digital first inclination, there's a growing emphasis on how using data analytics to measure effectiveness of PR campaigns, to gain insights into audience behavior, and much more. Brands are kind of seeking their partners to personalize all forms of communication to engage relevant audience engagement. We are yet to find out that our PR agency is doing enough to leverage data. Are they kind of able to send across their message equally across the channels? Are you able to measure the impact of the success of PR campaigns and whatnot? So in this dialogue, I will kind of nudge you to give us solutions and a measurable one. In your opening remarks, tell us how do you see the ecosystem evolve? And also, you briefly mentioned about the blurriness between different agencies, digital marketing agencies, peer agencies, and XYZ agencies. What it was looking like traditionally, let's say 10 years ago, and what it is right now.
So, Resham traditionally for me goes back 3 decades because I started my career back in 1993. And, one of the things that has always attracted me to public relations and made me feel so passionate about it is this whole concept of message architecture. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the early things that we learned and we do in any kind of public relations work or strategy that we build is to build this entire message architecture that stems from your core understanding of a business in context to the environment it operates in. And therefore, what is that message that that organization or an entity wants to communicate to various stakeholders? Now, the difference between public relations and, say, an advertising or, say, digital marketing is that in public relations, we consider a whole spectrum of stakeholders. We use the word stakeholders, not consumers. And so, therefore, the stakeholder is a much wider landscape of cohorts that a business needs to work with, influence, and work with. And this ranges from employees to government to communities around, which is society, civil society. It includes customers, both B2B and B2C customers, consumers, of course, and so on and so forth. So it's a very diverse cohort of stakeholders that we work with. And this entire platform or exercise of building a message architecture is about slicing and dicing then your understanding of that business in context to the environment it operates in, cutting through each of these stakeholders, right? So that is something that is central to public relations. And for practitioners who've been doing this for a long time. So from that sense of the word, content and content building, etc., is second skin to us. And because we are custodians of that message, as the digital age blurs the lines between digital marketing, advertising, social media, and so on and so forth, the the soul of your messaging rests in what we build for our clients, and out of that, are the various kind of content formats that emerge.
Interesting to know. Now that we already discussed that we have so many mediums to cover when we are kind of uh, building a brand, so to say. There's an abundance of information, and there are many channels now. We're also listening a lot of talks going on online reputation management. Has there any case that you have read very, very carefully and keenly, and you can kind of sorts learning from there in terms of online reputation management? And what is your general take on that?
So, no, I would rather kind of, speak about our own experience, both as a firm and as a practitioner, Resham, on what does online social reputation management really mean, and how are we kind of doing it? And um, so you see, when the fundamental principles of reputation management,
Hmm.
which we have been doing for decades, still holds good, except that it is so much faster. And the propensity to react rather than respond, comes into play when you're doing online social reputation management. And one of the things we always say is that um, respond, do not react on social media. Now, here again, tools like TalkWalker come into play because they give you, you know, split second data and analysis of what is going on, with what is of your brand's reputation online. Now, this requires our people to understand those tools and not go to them just once a day, but constantly review them. And of course, you're also getting dashboards all the time, right? When there are blips or there are kind of ups and downs in any kind of tracking, you're also kind of getting dashboards from these tools. So and I want to distinguish between digital marketing and online reputation management because as a PR firm, the way we do online reputation management is to listen and respond, but it's not necessarily in the gimmicky or the smart, cool way in which consumer brands are interacting, right? So a Dunzo, or the former Dunzo, or the Swiggies, or the Zomatos of the world are kind of, engaged in banter and pretty chatter with their consumers in order to kind of keep things alive, right? But I think for online reputation management, it is more about stepping back, listening, and not just preempting, right? It's also predicting, preempting, predicting, and then being proactive. These are the, very important elements of online reputation management. So, and we are trained to do that. We are trained to do that. So anyone who's been in our profession for a long time is able to sense what is going to go wrong and therefore jump in and salvage or mitigate the impact, the reputational damage, which is not just online, but on the brand overall. So that becomes very critical to remember, that it's not just trying to protect and pull a brand and kind of make things seem everything is okay, but ensure that there is overall trust with stakeholders, that even if things go wrong, and things are bound to go wrong, there is a benefit of doubt and the trust factor starts kicking in. And while there is damage, the bounce back for the brands is quick and fast enough. And then thereafter, it doesn't end there, right? Then you have to restore your reputation. And what do you do to restore your reputation? You have to walk the talk. And, and then you kind of, that cycle continues.
Beyond this, that given that you're focusing on tech, how would you kind of leverage those technologies to kind of personalize content? Uh, how invested are you there in terms of integrating tech and personalized content? How are you doing that?
To be honest, Resham, there is a long way to go. There is a long way to go. Look, I can
That's
equip,
a bold statement, huh?
I can,
Everybody shows that they're at the forefront, but that's a bold statement.
technology, you cannot be at the forefront of technology. Technology is moving at such a fast pace. I wouldn't make such a tall claim to say I'm ahead of technology. I will not. Uh, I will only say that Look, technology and tools are only as good as the way you kind of work or implement them, right? And I always say the output of tools is only as good as the input. Let's take a small example. Everyone's talking AI, but without the right prompts, you're not going to get the desired results, right? Now, for that, you need training. You need to have a certain intellect that works to providing the kind of it works to providing the input that gets the best out of that tool and technology. I'll give you some examples, Resham. While I say that, we have some way to go, and why I say this does not mean that I have not, the practice hasn't attempted or we have not attempted, right?
Of course, of course.
And let's go back in time. I'm going back to the early 2000s when, the practice was founded. And very soon we realized knowledge management was going to be a big part of running a PR firm, right? And back in those knowledge management, why is knowledge management important? Because you work with stakeholders. Every business that you work with, right? You start building relationships. Now, who is maintaining that repository of relationships? Because relationships are built over a period of time, right? Now, we started using in those days what was called public to store information and categorize information. And I remember it was back in 2004 when knowledge management was a big thing, right? It was a huge thing, knowledge management. It's a very complicated thing. And so when I spoke to experts in knowledge management and I tried to kind of build knowledge management into our into the way we worked, one, it was very, very complex to build frameworks and design, your backend for storing all this information. Second, expensive, very expensive. And third, um, would my team use it in the manner it is meant to be used? So huge amounts of training, huge amounts of follow-up, and there has to be a certain discipline when you use technology, right? So these were the three big challenges that I kind of saw. Now you move to, pre-COVID days and integration, so it's not just about for your clients, even as a firm, how are you using tech? How are you integrating? And we were lucky because we had a colleague who came in from one of the big fives, and she said, Nandita, I'm surprised that how do you keep tab across offices on who's working at their desk? And we invested in teams way before COVID, thanks to this young colleague, way before COVID. And therefore, all of us had laptops. And when COVID happened, we were all well set. We didn't have to scramble for technology. We were already collaborating using tech on our laptops. Back in 2017 or 16, we started using TalkWalker, listening and monitoring, right? Back then. And all our people were trained. There's this course called Digital Mountaineering on TalkWalker. Everyone does it. We do, workshops around that, and everyone does it. Again, expensive, a lot of training and the discipline to use it. So the mindset it's not just saying, hey, I'm tech savvy, right? Now, as an organization, I will not say we're at the forefront of technology usage till I honestly, hand on heart, can say that 100% of my employees are using every single tool and technology that I can provide. Then back again, 2018-19, we were working with process automation company, RPA. And we got them actually in a media briefing. We got them to conduct, instead of just making an announcement, we got them to conduct a 20 or a 40-minute session on how media can use RPA, right, to do quick research. And we demonstrated it, and we showed how you could code to kind of get that done. And we did the same for the practice. On an offsite, we brought these people in because, simple tasks like media monitoring that we do every morning, right? I think the first 1 hour of my team goes into scoring and tracking the news that comes from various organizations now. How could we automate that, right? Because that's something I felt could be automated. um, it was very, very difficult to do that. Very difficult to do that. We'd
I can
love to do,
imagine.
right? And then so talk worker this, and then we created on AWS. We created what could be the first ever tool using ML. This was back in 2018 as a repository of stakeholder engagement. And we had, how could we feed in on a parameter? And there were, I think, 12 parameters of understanding stakeholders. And I'm not talking cohorts, Resham, individual, who you could enter, you could analyze your client's relationship with them, and then it gets plotted on a interest and power thing. It's called a cube, and we have that tool, um, and we use it. Having said that, is everybody using it? No, right? So, like we say, that the thought of staying, I would say, playing catch up with technology, that intent is definitely there. But I feel that it requires a mindset of curiosity, of knowing what it does for you, and and also discipline to use it. Because I come back to what I started saying, that software or tools and technologies are only as good as your input to them. you know so there's a lot the practice has done. Even as we speak, we are kind of creating policies on what we should use ChatGPT for. How do we disclose that when we use it? And how do we use it intelligently so that ChatGPT and other tools are your assistants, but you do not let go of your intellect, pass and let AI tools take over that.
Lovely, lovely, and I must appreciate your interest in innovating that particular framework that you invested your time and effort. And I will also like to quickly touch upon how are you looking at fluctuating marketing spends across the sectors. But before that, we talked about how has this industry been for the last 10, 20, 30 years. But what do you foresee when in terms of integration of data analytics and refining communication strategies, maybe in measuring the efficacy of PR campaigns? How do you look at the industry evolving in next 5 to 10 years? What would be some of the defining trends?
Uh, I cannot be a soothsayer on technology, but all I will say is that there's a lot of conversation, which is very good, because when there is conversation, when people speak, you also have to then implement, you have to put that in place. And that is really good. And also, technology and things are moving at a very fast pace, and they are now
Not
direct.
just technology, not just technology. Help me understand how would the PR industry with technology would look like that 5 years or 10 years down the line. What would be some of the
Wow.
major trends?
It is definitely going to release our time to do a lot more what I spoke about: preemptive, predictive, proactive work. Um, at this point in time, we're doing a lot of preemptive work. So, for example, say in a crisis, you may know, Resham, that in public relations, we are constantly preempting crisis. Which means that we are thinking about what can go wrong and putting in place things that will prevent it from going wrong. All right. Now imagine adding one layer before to predict what can go wrong, and be able to customize our responses to those specific crisis that we can predict will happen. Um, Having said that, I would always say that sometimes our conversations amongst PR firms is ahead of our counterparts in the industry, in the communication, the corporate side. While they also have a lot of exposure to what is going on in their businesses, because let's remember this, where digital transformation is concerned, um, it's one of the hottest topics and buzzwords. Every business and every sector is going through digital transformation. But having said that, when the conversations of what we can do with technology, etc., comes in, there's very little inclination to pay for it. Everyone wants it all, but at the same fee or just at an incremental increase in fee. That is just not possible. Now we can, make it a chicken and egg situation and say, first you show me what you can do and then I will pay. And we can go back and say, no, you pay first and then I will show you what I can do. But somewhere our minds have to meet and our industry has to say that it is win-win for all of us if we make investments. And right now, Resham, we are not an industry which attracts capital the way other sectors do. But if we are to take the lead in this technology transformation, then we do need capital investment because, frankly, the retainer fees that we get um, is really not enough for us to innovate to the extent that we can. Really, right? So I think there's much to be, there is, so coming back to your point, uh, 5 or 10 years later, what would it look like? Um, I just feel that a lot of our stakeholders are going to form opinions, etc., based on what is out there online. Um, but India as a country, with the kind of chasm it has, rural, middle India, and then urban India, right? There's a huge divide. And I think, I mean, we're in the midst of election results, right? But I think the one thing everyone is pointing out to in the kind of results we've seen is, say, for example, a campaign which was run by a political party about walking thousands of kilometers to be in touch with the reality of invisible India, right? And I just feel that in a country like India, tech and digital will be important, but equally important will be what we do offline to stay in touch with our stakeholders. And that is going to be important. And, I always say that public relations was never meant to be a desk job. We were never meant to think with our fingertips, right? With the laptops and with this digital age and with all of these things that are coming up, you've not just made public relations a desk job, but we're also thinking with our fingertips. We're not exercising our memory muscle. We're not exercising our intellectual muscles because everything is just a click away. You want research, you just get the research, right? Now, that's not public relations. It is a field job. I have to be out there. If I am developing a CSR program, I can't do sitting here. I have to travel to that village where I'm going to make that impact. I have to speak to those stakeholders there, right? So that is something that we must not lose.
There is a sentiment in some of the people all across industries saying any publicity is a good publicity. How do you buy that phenomena? How do you look at? I'm sure that you must have been seeing many ups and downs when it comes to brand building across industries. What has been an experience like, and what is your personal take on this?
Obviously, the people who say that are definitely people who are heavily funded by VCs. It's not their own money. Uh, uh, I strongly believe that, Resham. It's a very careless remark because it is also giving yourself, uh, the leeway to
Hmm?
do anything and get away with it.
Yeah.
So that is irresponsible and a very careless statement. So that is one. And I must say that, we must distinguish, like I said, the pretty chatter, the banter, that is not storytelling or building reputation. That's my
In
belief.
continuation to this point, how are you seeing things unfolding on social media? Social media is so quick in terms of accessibility. It's an open web where a creator can be there, a receiver can be there. How are you looking at space?
Uh,
How healthy or unhealthy
my
that
my
area is?
relation, and I'll speak from my relationship point of view. I must say that I'm also, from being dismissive to accepting to respecting to embracing, right? And not that I'm active, Resham, not that I feel that I need to be active to get the best out of social media, but I need to understand that tool. I need to the extent that I know what it takes to build that kind of engagement, what works, what does not work, right? Uh, so that is important, um, but it has to be used responsibly. And I, as a practitioner, a public relations practitioner, cannot use it the same way as a consumer. So, am I creating those boundaries for myself as a practitioner and as a consumer of social media? Because even as a consumer of social media, I have to wear my practitioner hat. I cannot be schizophrenic about it. And I also have to have a very open mind, um, to kind of say what works for which sector, and etc. I have to have a very open mind, and I cannot get polarized in the way things are kind of projected on social media, right? So I think I personally kind of, when I look at social media, it's more not from the perspective of only a consumer, but as a practitioner too.
Or I actually jump onto my last question just before that. What can be one learning of your experience being in the industry? What would be one piece of advice you would like to give to younger professional coming into this field that they must hold on to? What that would be?
I always say that the first 5 years of your career dedicated to learning and absorbing and being disciplined and professional, the rest will follow. Um,
Any industry specific insight? This is more personal, but any industry specific?
this is industry specific, Resham, because we are eventually going to be guardians of reputation. And if we do not build these qualities, right, we are not going to be able to deliver to reputational objectives of our clients. So therefore, it is very, very critical that
You're
we.
sounding like a strict professor, I'm afraid. Now, move on
I
to our
have been
last question.
told that. I have been told that, but hey, if if you want to stay at the top of your game, being a small independent firm for 25 years, without getting knocked out, I guess you have to follow this,
A tough battle, huh? Tough battle.
Yeah.
Just my final question with the practice. What are your goals for next 6 months or 1 year, so to say? What are your goals, vision?
As you know, we have just brought on two industry stalwarts on board as partners and investors, Zach James and Rishi Seth. And suddenly we've got so much wind beneath our wings to fly, and to just kind of accelerate our vision to realize the full potential of public relations and all
And what
that
is that full potential?
special.
That part as well.
The full potential of public relations is establishing it as a management discipline that covers everything from employee relations in the management to CSR to to internal communications to CSR to reputation management, crisis management, analyst relations, public affairs. There is so much to public relations and what we do right now. And Resham, everything that we discussed.
Thank you, Nandita. It was a very, very insightful conversation and a very lovely one. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you so much for making time for this. We look forward to have more such conversation more often and look forward to meet you.
Thanks, Resham. Thank you.